Hi everyone, welcome to the 8 o'clock show. We are going to have a guest today, but before I thought I'll just chat with you for 2-3 minutes and then we'll start the show. So one of the things that's most important in this world is Madan Padaki is here. You'll meet him in a few minutes. I was just saying one of the most important things in this world is the ability to be of service to others. Today I had another meeting in which we were talking about, I think it was Mark Twain who said that there are only 2 days that matter for you. One is the day you're born, and the other is the day when you find out why you're born. I think we each have a purpose in this world. We each serve a certain duty, certain purpose, certain service to others. And when I say service to others, it doesn't mean social work or anything like that. It is what is the purpose of your life to make a difference to others. And many of us find it through different ways. Some people know exactly what they want. A couple of my friends are physicists. They knew they wanted to be physicists, and there are somebody who wants to be a artist, or there are some that are innately there in people, and some of us find them, and some of them keep evolving them. So our guest is somebody who has reinvented himself many times, and he's really used his financial success in his entrepreneurial journey to move to the social entrepreneurship and make a lot of difference to others. So I really would like to welcome Madan Padaki, who is somebody a long time ago. He was an entrepreneur with a company called MeritTrac, and then he had an organization called Head Held High and Gap, and so he is a man that wears many different hats, and every time I meet him, he's doing something new, something more interesting. So I'd like to have him join us. There you are, Madan.
There.
You were looking at
Yes,
some
hi
dark
Lakshmi.
spots. Hi, how are
Yes, I
you?
realized the camera was on the other side. Hey, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Good. So, in your bio, it says that a proud Bangalorean who lives in
Yes.
Baswangudi, so it's sort
Yes.
of, you're not just a proud Bangalorean, you're a proud Baswangudi Bangalorean.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a hardcore part of Bangalore, which is where Bangalore
I
really
know.
began.
I know. I live in Whitefield, and most of my friends say that you don't even live in Bangalore. You're like, we need a visa
Exactly.
to come
Yeah.
there. That's not the real Bangalore where all the
Correct.
good, proper eating joints are and all that stuff.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
so Madan, just before you came on board, I was saying you're somebody who keeps reinventing yourself a lot, and one thing I must say is that you always find the best names for organizations. Head held high and Gap
Uh,
and Now Game, and it's sort of you should start a naming consulting firm. Really like you should come up with the best names, things that
that
I.
definitely gives me an alternative career post-COVID to figure out what else I should be doing.
Yeah. So Madan, I thought before we get to what you're doing now, we should talk about your background a little bit. You've been
Mm,
an entrepreneur. You were with MeritTrac, and I was just saying how you have used your entrepreneurial success to get into social entrepreneurship, to really make a difference in
mhm.
social entrepreneurship. While you continue to invest on the education side, I think your time and effort is spent on the social entrepreneurship side, also
Yes.
creating jobs here, also creating
Mm,
capital here. So it's not just a charity, but like really a sustainable charity. So I wanted to
mm,
ask you, typically in an entrepreneurial journey, when someone has a success, they want to do another company or they want to become a VC, or which you are kind of in some ways. But
mm.
what made you come into social entrepreneurship?
Thanks, Lakshmi. First of all, thanks for having me here on the show. It's always a delight to be in conversation with you, though it's been quite some time since we did the radio show.
I know. Yeah.
But the question that you asked, so when I moved out of when MeritTrac got acquired by Manipal, I spent almost 7 years with the Manipal group, of course, running MeritTrac and then playing a role at the corporate level. My mind was always going back to two questions. One is that because of the work at MeritTrac, I had seen youth very closely, young people, their aspirations, unemployability, employability issues, so on and so forth. And the second question...
Do you want to briefly tell us what MeritTrac did so everybody knows?
Yeah, MeritTrac started out in 2000. Three of us co-founded MeritTrac as India's first skills assessments organization. So we spotted an opportunity saying that, listen, as the IT and BPO services sector grows, there'll be a demand for quality talent. And therefore, how do you define quality and how do you assess that quality itself will become an important thing to be done by organizations. And we said, what if we provided that as a service to IT BPO companies? And that's how MeritTrac was born.
Correct. Yeah.
And then we expanded the testing space into governments, into various non-profits, education institutions, so on and so forth. MeritTrac is easily one of the top assessment companies in the world today, having tested over about 40-50 million people. And that gave me a ringside view on youth and their aspirations and therefore the skills issues that they had. And I was always trying to find the issues of supply-demand mismatches. And I realized one of the biggest missing links out there is aspirations. Yeah. That it's just not EQ and IQ, but there's AQ, which is also aspirations quotient. And that led me to think deeply about how do you truly unleash the potential of youth. If every one of us has unlimited potential, which I truly believe we all have, and a lot of us die without even knowing what treasures lie within, how do we help youth unlock that potential? Was the quest that was going on in my mind, and happy coincidence to meet my partners at Head High Foundation, who'd already embarked on a journey to build a rural BPO using rural youth. And the experiments that we did out there were stunning, where you could literally take a zero-educated, illiterate village youth, and in 6 months' time, you could transform him or her to be an English-speaking, computer-literate knowledge professional. So that hooked me in very deeply, saying that if this is the potential that exists, how do you unlock that? Not through charity, not through just giving, but how do you participate in their journey, and how do you make life come alive for them, both from a social and an economic standpoint as well.
Got it.
And
sorry, go ahead.
No, the other question really is, I kind of contemplated on this enterprise and social enterprise model for a long time. A lot of people ask me this question, saying, how's life on the other side?
Correct.
And I've come to believe that there's nothing called as a social enterprise. I think we're framing it wrong. In my view, there is no enterprise and social enterprise. In my view, there's an enterprise and an anti-social enterprise. Because I believe that every enterprise has to be social by definition and by nature.
Yeah. I mean, that's what J.R.D. Tata said, right, when he started Tata.
Absolutely.
That the purpose of a corporation is to serve the community it exists. So it's sort of, without that, what's the point of making all this money?
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. And, one of the things I wanted to ask you, even for me, way back when we did digital equalizer program, etc. When you go to rural areas or even tier 2, 3 cities, the hunger that there is so much higher, with the same resource that you give, the usage of it, the hunger with which it's consumed is so much higher. I mean, even you see that even between like a Bangalore and a Mysore. I mean, you don't even need to go to Mandya or something like that. Even like between a Bangalore and a Mysore and a Mandya, it's just sort of exponentially there's more hunger. And I think it's a lot of times, and which is what I want you to address, is that a lot of times it's just exposure that's missing. I mean, in the sense, somebody who grows up in a city knows how to talk, where to go, how to, apply for certain scholarships and things like that. So tell us a little bit about, I mean, obviously there is a point of starting a rural BPO, etc. But beyond that, you've also done work on how to get the rural youth be prepared for the workforce. So tell me a little bit about what are some of the things you found you have to do to give that exposure.
Sure. As you rightly said, Lakshmi, I believe that poverty is nothing but capability deprivation and opportunity deprivation. Right? If you can create capabilities and provide opportunities for these capabilities to be expressed, then people will figure a way out. And I've seen that repeatedly. Head held high, we transform youth into capable human beings. And they figure things out themselves, right? Well, we do run our placements and entrepreneurial workshop models, support models, but they are largely saying, hey, now I've figured this out, I will handle things myself. In one with the rural enterprise that I run, the entrepreneurial spirit that exists in rural India, the hunger that exists, is something that has captivated me right through. Right? We have about 5,000 entrepreneurs in 5,000 villages now across 3 states. And I'm fascinated every time I have a conversation with them on the way they look at opportunities, the way they look at capabilities. And they're hungry for more. They're saying, hey, why is access, choice, convenience should be the prerogative only of your urban folks? Why can't we get the same kind of access in rural areas? So the moment you create that opportunity, people will develop the capability to rise into that. That also brings me to the point of saying that if you look at one of the largest issues that the country faces today, I mean, of course, notwithstanding COVID, is how do you capture the power of millions of youth who are entering our workforce over the next 10, 15 years? And how do you unleash their full potential so that they can lead a life of abundance? Right? And I'm not just talking of material abundance. I'm also talking of the emotional and the abundance of contributing to the society itself. And of course, the stepping stone to that is you need to create economic pathways and opportunities for them, which is where I think entrepreneurship plays a huge role of creating incomes not only for themselves but for the community around them.
Yeah. So can you give me a particular story or an example, Madan, of how you have transformed, how some of your work has transformed someone's life? You already said there's 5,000 entrepreneurs in 5,000 locations, etc. Can you give me an example of a person, somebody who's really turned their, and as Swaraja is saying, hidden resourcefulness and entrepreneurial potential of our youth. So how do we give us an example of how you uncovered some of these hidden talents and made them successful.
Sure. No, I think, every person I meet has a story that is so compelling and inspiring. I'm struggling to find out which one to fit, but I'll give you a story that really transformed my life of a person called Ramesh Balid, who was one of our first trainees at Heddle High. Ramesh comes from a village called Kotiguda, which is 60 kilometers from Raichur, really back of the beyond. And family of 10, works as a cowherd, had never been to school, never held a pencil in his life, and didn't even know what time was. He says, hey, if it was sunrise, it was morning, if it was sunset, it was night, that's it. That was my life. When Ramesh came into our transformation program, he was so scared. He was so scared he wanted to touch a computer. He thought it's going to get up and bite him or something like that. Right? At the end of 6 months, Ramesh generated enough confidence that he could address and speak with you and me now in fluent English, reasonably fluent English, with a lot of confidence. Went on to work in a rural BPO, which we set up in Koppal. He worked there for 4-5 years. Subsequently rose up to be a team leader, was earning 15,000-20,000 rupees a month. But something was gnawing at him, saying that this is not the life I want. And he realized that his purpose in life, as you were speaking, was to go and empower other people like him to become better. So a few years ago, he went back to his village, and he is now a motivational speaker, an entrepreneur who's on his own. And he's the most sought after motivational speaker for youth in North Karnataka. His Facebook post is all about, I've addressed this many students, and his message is simple. If I can be like this from here to there, you all have unlimited potential.
Absolutely.
And he dreams that he wants to start a rural motivational training academy of sorts, where he can touch the lives of thousands and thousands of people. I'm sure Ramesh will go on to employ and generate employment opportunities for several others. So in every person we meet, we see stories like this that inspire us. I sometimes think that if we had not chanced into that village, and if Ramesh was still living the life of the goat herd there, it would have been such a waste of the potential that he possesses. And imagine millions of people who possess that potential but unable to express it.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me a little bit about, you started GAME now, which is a Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship. So it's sort of, you have, with head held high, it was rural BPO for rural entrepreneurs. Then you did GAP, Global Alliance Against Poverty. You started doing this. So tell me a little bit about GAME. What made you do this? How did it start? And what are you hoping to accomplish through this?
Sure. So in all of this, I also set up a social enterprise called OneBridge, where we were attempting to create entrepreneurs in rural India, Karnataka, Andhra, Tamil Nadu, and very interestingly, both Ravi Venkatesan, the former chairman of Microsoft and a dear mentor, as well as Nakin Maheshwari, a very terrific friend and a human being. Both of them were investors in OneBridge as well. And the conversation really of GAME started around saying, listen, if OneBridge is one model for creating entrepreneurs, and maybe in our wildest dreams, we might reach 100,000, 150,000 entrepreneurs. The need of the hour is today like 100 million people, right? And maybe there are thousands of OneBridges out there and thousands of variants of OneBridges out there. But there's no single platform where all of us can come together to co-create a better future using entrepreneurship as a lever. Right? The second data point was that in India, we have two extremes of entrepreneurship. If you say entrepreneurship in Bangalore, we only think those tech startups, the geeky ones which are trying to create technologies of the future. And if you talk to our folks and our brothers and sisters at the government and Ministry of MSME and so forth, the MSME sector is largely driven by what we call as necessary entrepreneurs. Most of them are seen as beneficiaries. Of the 111 million people, 95% of them are solopreneurs, right? So we realize that there is a missing middle where an entrepreneur is seen as an opportunity entrepreneur, where he or she can say, listen, not only will I thrive, but I will create employment for 5 or to 20 other people. And that we called as the missing middle and as mass entrepreneurs. And with all the data that we crunched, we realized that if we can empower entrepreneurs to be on the journey to hire and grow and hire 5 to 20 people and get into that mass entrepreneurship, then we're solving two problems in one shot. One, you're solving the problem of jobs and employment at the local level. And you're also building a thriving distributed model of equitable growth across the country. Right? And that is the genesis of GAME, where Ravi, Mekin and I came together to say, how do we create a mass entrepreneurship as the focal point for job creation in the country, and how do we create an alliance? And we realized that obviously it's not an organization that can solve this issue, but if we can galvanize the ecosystem to come together around this, and we operate in a synchronized fashion, because we don't have much time. We have probably the next 10 years or so to solve this. Right? And with COVID, we now have to accelerate that as well. And that's how GAME was started.
And I want to continue that thought by you talking about COVID, and we are in a very vulnerable state now. And you actually have a process by which you think we can address this. Tell us about what is going to be life on the other side. What is the path from here to life on the other side?
Yeah, no, we worry a lot about the economic fallout of COVID. Believe that sometimes the economic fallout of COVID will be much, much larger than the health scare that we have and health issues that we have. And unless and until we address this upfront, we're going to see a mass extinction of mass entrepreneurs itself, of small and medium scale businesses. Four issues that we see coming up, especially as we speak to entrepreneurs. One is that liquidity and cash is going to be the single biggest challenge that entrepreneurs will face from now till whatever the new normalcy returns. Two is that apart from just cash and liquidity, every entrepreneur will go through harrowing times, a lot of mental stress, reshaping of business models. The business that you're running, if you're running a saloon or a beauty spa or a travel agent business, right? You're not going to see business coming back.
Or a small hotel, all these
or a small hotel. Exactly. So how do you then repurpose and refashion from where you were? And what support do you require to figure out, okay, how can I, with the skills that I have, what should I be doing next? So we expect that there'll be a huge amount of support required for these entrepreneurs itself as they navigate through finding new businesses, right? The third is that I think we need to build a support ecosystem for them, not just a mentors, experts, but the community supporting small entrepreneurs as well. And how do you get the community to rally around small businesses? And that's where the distributed model comes into play. And fourth, in all of the dark clouds that we see, there will be silver linings, right? Do we see farmers becoming far more entrepreneurial with the challenges that they face? Do we see exports becoming, a larger opportunity for a variety of import substitutions? So in the post-COVID era, we are seeing these four challenges, and again we are recalibrating all of our plans to figure out how do we address the cash flow issues, liquidity issues of entrepreneurs. How do we create a robust support ecosystem for them? We've just partnered with the government of Karnataka to launch a support hub, which is a helpline, a range of mentors and experts across the districts who are available on call, who can talk to them, connections to banks, connection to local associations, so on and so forth. And we're also working with the Ministry of MSME to take it national. We are also thinking of a Swachh Bharat-like campaign to build more compassionate commerce. So I believe that it's not going to be e-commerce, but it's going to be C-commerce or more compassionate commerce that has to emerge. And how do you support? How do we support small businesses?
Correct. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about, you talk about the 3 R's, right, of how do we get out of this vulnerable state. So tell us a little bit about the relief, recovery, the things that you talk about. How do you see us traveling?
Yeah. So a friend of mine was recently giving me this interesting framework, and which I think is fascinating. He says, hey, there is relief. Of course, we need to provide food, shelter, whatever that needs to be done to enable people to survive this phase. Right? And then you move to recovery phase where you're trying to pick up the pieces and try and figure out how to get your life back. And then there's a third phase where you are in a regenerative phase where you have to regenerate not just the past, but also build the new future. Right? A lot of effort today is on the relief side.
Correct.
And I think it's time for us to start looking at how do we how do we move from relief to recovery, and more importantly, how do we regenerate from recovery? How do we move to the regenerative phase where we are looking at the future in a new way, right? And the analogy is that, hey, the house has crumbled. It will be a shame to rebuild the same house.
Yeah.
Right? With all its defects and whatever.
Right. It's so interesting. One of my friends, Prakash Bhalirao, is in the Bay Area. And they had a little accident in their house, and it burned. Part of the house burned down. So I was like, "Oh my God! So what did you do?" He said, "It's burned down. You can't feel bad about it." So they decided to rebuild, and they decided to create a whole basement for just music concerts. So their house became the place where all music concerts happened. So he said, "If there is a destruction, can we create something positive out of it?" And I thought it was such a great way to look at things,
So, never waste a crisis. Yeah.
Exactly. You never let a crisis go to waste, right? So talking about that, there was a question also about which sectors do you see solopreneurs becoming more formal entrepreneurs, or maybe what are some new sectors where there'll be opportunities post-COVID? Where should people look at?
Yeah. So we've been doing a fair bit of research on that. And so we're seeing 3 kinds of businesses. Businesses that are impacted of course, everybody is impacted now. Businesses that are impacted significantly and that need to go leaner and look at other means of increasing their own effectiveness and efficiencies. Businesses that are hit and that need to reinvent themselves, and new opportunities emerging. In the new opportunities emerging, we definitely see health and education as two large sectors, which will see a huge amount of spotlight in the post-COVID era. And both of these sectors will tremendously benefit by use of technology in these spaces, right? So be it telemedicine, which has been languishing for a long time and Lakshmi, you and I have been having conversations about online education for a long time, never reached the tipping point. And I think that those two sectors will see a massive set of opportunities. Food, travel, beauty salon services will need to figure out a way of reinventing themselves. Textile manufacturing are hit. They need to figure out, how do you really create more leaner, more distributed versions of the models that we have, right? And in all of this, I think the question around formalizing becomes critical, because most of the solopreneurs are outside the ambit of the formal formalization process, right? They don't have access to formal bank credit. Many of them don't even have bank accounts, which are segregated to business and personal accounts. So I think this is a great opportunity to bring more people into the formalized mode and to create products and services that cater to this category of entrepreneurs.
Correct. And actually, we had the president of a very large, New York University just 3 days ago. And he was saying literally in 2 weeks, they had to go digital, because in New York, everybody is at home. Nobody's coming back to college. And, they have to look at new admissions. And he's saying, first of all, evaluating. And secondly, all these new admissions maybe learning from home. So he said literally in 2 weeks, they had to go online. So now imagine all the new people they had to hire to make that happen. Right?
To make that happen.
Right. So my last question to you is about, we talked about identifying new business opportunities, and you're trying to put a lot of things out there. I've read the things that you're trying to get a $100 million micro enterprise stabilization fund. Tell me a little bit about the fund. What are you trying to accomplish, or what are you trying to get?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, cash and liquidity is going to be a big issue for small entrepreneurs. So at GAIN, we're trying to put a coalition of partners, philanthropic capital, NBFCs, governments, large institutions like SIDBI, etc., to figure out, can we create a model of a $100 million SMB stabilization fund? That's not a large pot of money, but we're saying, can we create an innovative model and showcase how the money can flow, how it's not a grant, how it can be structured as a loan, how the loan will work. So we put a task force that is working very hard on creating this fund and the constructs of the fund, so that in a few months from now, we can demonstrate that a new form of capital can be made available to support entrepreneurs. And hopefully that can become a new instrument, so to speak, at a later point of time. So that's our effort there. And as you said, we were also trying to create a support network to go along with it. There are lots of retired bankers, ex-IAS officers, who are all ready to come in and support entrepreneurs on their journeys. So by combining a mass movement around recognizing entrepreneurial capabilities, by creating a fund, and by bringing in mentors, and by showcasing new business opportunities, we're hoping that we can actually, level up the field for MSMEs and mass entrepreneurs themselves.
Yeah. So Madan, really, thank you. I really have to say, in all the years I have known you, you've always been regenerating yourself, in the sense, expanding the pie from rural BPO to Gap to, now with this mass entrepreneurship. I'm sure, people like you and Ravi, you're all going to come together to deal with this in a huge way. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
For anyone who is interested, you can go to GAME, Global Alliance for Mass Entrepreneurship, find more detail about that, and follow Madan Padaki and check the institute and support in any way you can. You can give your time, you can give your money, you can give your support, ideas, anything. And Madan is somebody who will take it and turn it into 10 times its impact. So thank you so much for your time, Madan. Okay.
Thanks a lot.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for getting me here. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in. Bye. Take care. Stay safe.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.